Okay, so recording in progress. I'm like tripping over my words. It's a Friday. But welcome back, y'all, to this Life's the Pits podcast. I have the pleasure of speaking with Lori today, and I'm gonna hand it over in a minute to her and let you, Lori, introduce yourself and all the goodness that you're putting out into this world. But Lori and I met through a mutual coach, mutual friend, mutual other goodness human of the world. Well, actually, both Jesse and Desiree Cruz. They're like
Yes.
dynamic duo. And we have had, the universe is such a beautiful thing, but brought
Mhm.
us together through Warrior Women, which we are putting our own stories out and writing
Yes.
together and going to be just spending probably this next year or so together in various
Yes.
different things, which has been so fun. Lori is a fellow coach and just warrior woman with me. So I'm going to hand it over for you to really do more deep dive on who you are and what you do. But
Sure.
welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Erin. It is really good to be here. Um, I'm so used to, I have my own podcast. So when I get to be a guest on somebody else's, it is just a nice little treat because, you know, we have our message to get out there, and it's just so awesome to be able to just keep getting the message out there to be able to help others. So, as I mentioned, I do have a podcast. I'm the host of the She Thrives Influential Women Podcast. But my practice and my mission is an empowerment coach for women. I work with women on all different areas of their lives based on what their goals and needs are. I'm certified in holistic health and wellness, as well as a transformational life coach. So I have a broad spectrum of different services from health and wellness, resulting in healthier lifestyle changes like managing stress, weight loss, hormone health, things to that nature, personal growth and development goals. I mean, you don't have to be struggling in life to work with me. You could be doing amazing and thriving in certain areas, but there's other areas you want to be able to, move forward with, but you're stuck. And I help break down those barriers, navigate through fear, build confidence, um, just to basically help women thrive in their lives.
Beautiful, beautiful. I really, so we do very parallel things in some capacity. I think, like I was sharing with you earlier, is primarily I'm working with folks in the mental health space and helping them really go from that public sector into the private sector and working for
Hmm.
themselves because as you know, because you have done similar work or your husband does similar work,
He does.
that in this field throughout any of our education, we're not taught business skills. We're not taught logistics of how to work for yourself or how to build that
Right.
confidence within, right? It's just like they give us the tips and the tricks and the things that we need in some capacity, but it's really geared towards getting into the public sector, which is beautiful. In my time in the public sector has been really what gave me the some really great skills that I've been able to work
Hmm.
with people on this end of it. But being on this side of it and being able to help people get to this side and leave that hustle burnout way of life and start to
Yeah.
thrive, right? Like
Yeah.
we do very similar parallel things and you have your own, foundation in the way that you run your stuff. So
Hmm.
tell us, and you don't have to go into all the deets today, share what's on your heart with us, but because we could talk for hours, you and I, and we have before, um, but
I really feel like we
I
could keep
know,
this going.
I know,
If you guys got about 8 hours worth of time to listen to us, sit back, relax, grab a cup of
I
coffee. It's going to be a
know.
fun ride.
It's a fun ride. We're kindred spirits, but so, I know you have like your process of how you bring people through that journey of getting from
Mhm.
that like stuck space to that really thriving. So how did you discover that process, right? So obviously, what makes a really great coach, what I'm finding, is somebody that's embodying the work, right?
Yes.
And so when you are embodying that, you can speak from experience and you can help other people and
Mhm.
see where their little tweaks are. So tell us about your journey on how you got here and what you've been able to embody to share
Sure.
with, your folks.
Well, so I will say that my lived experience is what really led me to this path. And it's not even a path, it's a calling to work with women, in to be able to say, hey, guess what? If I can do this, so can you. Because I was not a, very ambitious person when I was young. I lived in a very dark place. I lacked a lot of confidence. Um, and in my youth, I wasn't really provided with tools to be able to cope with trauma and some significant painful experiences. Um, my parents divorced when I was 16, but 4 years prior to that is when the problems in my family really started. And it was a very chaotic and, a very unhealthy household. And I wouldn't have known that until now. A lot of the stuff I thought was normal,
Right.
um, not realizing that, I basically hid behind a lot of the feelings I had, but I did struggle with a lot of mental health issues, eating disorders, self-harm, substance abuse. I really tried my eating disorder was not about trying to be thin as much as it was trying to grasp at control wherever I could. So
Yeah.
if I could at least control this, because I had no control over anything else,
Mhm.
then, and again, it's one of those things when you're in it, you don't realize it. I just knew that I wasn't happy, wasn't satisfied, was I felt powerless and I was feeling scared. And maybe if I feel thin, I won't feel so scared, right? Maybe, I also felt, a sense of not feeling loved.
Mhm.
There was that, my like I said, my parents' marriage was in disarray. My siblings, my older siblings were kind of getting done with high school and going off to the military. And I had a younger sister who was home with me and the family dealing with the issues that were at hand. But I was also dealing with a lot of stuff outside the home too, with, um, I was bullied, in my teens, mistreated by every boyfriend I ever had. Um, there was trauma
Mhm.
involved in a lot of that. So you factor into all of these things without having any type of healthy coping skill. I think the only thing that I did back then that was healthy was I wrote poetry.
Oh, I didn't know that about you. You were
Yes.
a budding writer back then, huh?
Yes, and
Love
I
that.
wrote I wrote a lot of poetry. It was my outlet, and I actually was very good at it, not to toot my own horn.
Yeah.
And my grandmother, my dad's mother, she passed away when I was 18, but before I would call her and I would read her the poems, and she would always encourage me to publish them. And I still keep that as a goal,
I love that.
and maybe utilize it gearing toward younger women in their, youth, in their teens, going into their 20s, because maybe what I wrote might help them see relatability and then turning it into a way that this is how you can navigate this
Mm.
pain.
Yeah.
Um, but fast forward into my 20s, I fell into my alcoholism. I did have my career in dentistry. I was in a long-term relationship. And when I found my way to alcoholism, when it really started to kick up, it was after couple years of not using substances, thinking I was in a healthier place, getting into a better, place in my life. I still struggled with the underlying stuff that I never dealt with.
Mm.
And it created a lot of depression, severe depression. Um, And it was hindering on a lot of areas of my life, and I didn't realize it. And then when I finally got into the alcoholism, it just was almost like as I describe it, a Mach 5 tornado ripping through a small town.
Yeah.
It just, you know, I, by within a matter of 5 years, because I started really getting into the alcoholism when I was probably about 24, when I
Hmm.
started bartending part-time.
Mm.
I just destroyed everything in my path. And when I was 29 and when I finally found my way into recovery, that was when the growth happened. That was when the healing happened. And it just the past 13 years has just been this incredible, gut-wrenching, painful, but absolutely rewarding and relieving journey where I've completely transformed. And then when I was probably about 38 years old, I had this moment of clarity where I heard this calling inside me, like, you're a coach, like, this is what you should be doing. And from there, it just, I spent the last few years trying to, up until this point, it was navigating ways to make that happen, going through a journey with that, and then finally, getting the education. And, um, you know, I didn't know right away that it was working with women. It was more or less helping people. I didn't realize that women was my center focus until probably about 2 years ago.
Mm.
And then it was all over from there. And it's just been this beautiful journey of I've learned a lot and I've continued to grow a lot. And I've been able to see a lot in me that I didn't know was there. That's good.
I love that. I'm sure there are so many things you can speak about and all the twists and turns and like just events that have occurred in the last
Yeah, like I said,
decade.
how much time you got? Because
Right, right. But what I'm interested in that if you are willing to share today, because I know I actually know some people personally that struggle with, you know, I think addiction is such an interesting concept because there are so many things we can become addicted to. On our last call before this, you and I were both on a networking call and we were talking about just burnout addiction, right?
Mhm.
Like this high level executive level women or just, high level producing women, we can find periods in our life where we are, or seasons of our life where we are just addicted to that like burnout phase of like,
Oh
okay, I
yeah,
need to go, go, go until I crash because
that hustle
yeah,
mentality.
yes. And I think there's something, I struggle with the term like hustle culture because I think it's been like such a fad and been like thrown around there, but that's so
It's
real.
overused.
It is, but it is also the feeling of that is pretty real, right? Is
Hmm.
that whether we genetically or like innately are creating that within ourselves or it truly is being put on us societally, like it's felt, right? So,
Yes,
and I think that goes along with that drive and need for that burnout. So there's so
right.
many ways that addiction can be labeled, whether it's I'm addicted to working, I'm addicted to uh substances, I'm addicted to working out, whatever it is, right? And I know we talked earlier about like you sort of replacing one addiction with another and learning how to
Yeah.
realize when that's happening and how to find a delicate sort of way to address that. So I'm interested in your way of because alcoholism, right? Yes, it can become an addiction. And I actually have a couple people personally that have been highly functioning alcoholics, like really successful, high level executive women. And this is something that they have struggled with for quite some time.
Yeah.
They're working through it and they're doing things. And it's so interesting, because I think working out or work or
Hmm.
alcohol, those are things that are wildly acceptable
Yeah.
in way of addiction. Like it's almost like, well, why aren't you working harder? why aren't you going out and having fun and having cocktails? Like you deserve that once in a while. Right?
Yes.
Like there's an acceptableness to that level of addiction, right? So I'm interested from your perspective of being in it and now helping women through it, your husband being an addiction counselor and specialist,
Yep.
being on the other side of that. And every day, I'm sure that's something you have to consciously be mindful of. What was
Sure.
a pivotal moment for you that you were locked into the change? And there might be more than one, but what is something
Was
you?
it would you mean the pivotal moment of the change of when I decided to get sober?
Yeah.
Like my absolute rock bottom?
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's important for people to hear stories like
oh
this, right?
yes.
Because this was something that you had battled with and that you continue to on some level, right? But what was that rock bottom that you were like, I gotta draw a line in the sand, and then from that point on you've started to feel the momentum. Like it gives people hope and it gives people
Hmm.
an understanding, right?
Yep. Yeah. And one of the key things about realizing that you have a problem is when you have to face consequences of your actions and behaviors. The year of 2011 was, I like to call the year of consequence and the year of the rock bottoms because it was a cycle of rock bottoms, including a near-death experience, 4th of July weekend of 2011 when I was heartbroken over a situation. I actually, and I'll say this, like I met somebody and I fell head over heels with them, knowing that they were only here for a short time. They lived in Ireland. They weren't even from this country. So
Um,
when they left, I was left devastated. And even though we talked about him coming back, he never did. And when I realized he wasn't coming back, it just, the way I handled that heartbreak, because I was hooked to now mind you, great human being, an absolute great human being. I have nothing but kind words for this person, but it was the idea of the fairy tale for me that finally someone saw that I was enough, that I was worthy and valuable. They're going to come back for me. And then realizing that they weren't, it was that I'm not worthy. I'm not what I guess I'm not, you know what I mean? Like I'm not lovable. Um, I
yeah.
guess I really am that piece of garbage that I feel like inside. That was the part that really got to me. And it took years of healing to be able to recognize that because back then it was really centered around he's never coming back and I fell in love and, you know,
Yeah.
whatever else. But I remember going out one night with my sister and some friends and drinking excessively to the point where I almost died. If it weren't for the fact that I had a friend with me at my apartment that night to call 911 and get me to the hospital, I don't know if I'd be here today.
Wow.
Because I not only was my blood alcohol content well over exceeding limit, um, I had fallen in my bathroom and bashed my head between my toilet and my tub, and I was completely knocked out cold,
Oh my
and she
goodness.
couldn't wake me up. Do you think that that was my rock bottom where I was like, I got to make a change? Nope, no, nope. I was right back to it, but finally August came and then I was like, okay, I had another experience where I put myself in a very unsafe situation. And that was the first time I admitted out loud to my mother after I had to have her pick me up from this very unsafe situation in the middle of the night. And I broke down in tears and she said, you have to stop. You can't keep doing this. And I said, I can't.
Mhm.
I don't, I can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's like, why can't you? I said, I don't know how to do this on my own. I go, I can't stop. I want to stop, but I can't. And even then, like I tried a little period of, not drinking. And then I was like, well, I'm not I went to one AA meeting and I was like, I'm not an alcoholic. I just, I got a little carried away and partied a little hard. And that was the story I started to tell myself. So I started to I'm just not going to drink whiskey anymore. I'll just stick to wine. I'm not going to do this anymore. And all that did was escalate the problem. And I ended up getting worse.
Mm,
But now I'm also lying to everybody around me and trying to convince like my family who wanted to have an intervention to get me to stop that I was doing much better. I just learned to hide it more. So
mm,
eventually, November of 2011, when that hit, that was like, after a couple more rock bottoms, that was it. I got busted for drinking and driving.
mm,
Thankfully, I did not have an accident. I did not hurt anybody. I just was, I was very lucky to have an officer who saw me get in the car after leaving a bar and he followed me and I was weaving and driving with no headlights on. And he pulled me over. And it took a while for me to even realize that his lights were on behind me. It was like it didn't register.
yeah.
And when I was sitting in the back of that police car, and I wrote about this for my Warrior Women chapter. Was I had like an outer body spiritual experience where it was like I could see my loved ones who had passed away above me in heaven, and they were sitting around like a glass table looking down at me, and they've been trying to figure out what's going to be the thing that stops me, that gets me to realize that I'm in trouble. And my cousin Mike, who had just recently passed away, was like, this is going to be the thing that stops her. And sure enough, like I'm sitting there and I got this image in my head. And all of a sudden, I heard the words, "You're done."
Mm.
And I have not touched a drink since.
Wow.
I don't even have the urge.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just was like that compulsion lifted. Like I still bartended for like 8 months after that. And I had no desire to
Wow.
drink because I just knew in that moment, and not everybody has these experiences where that compulsion lifts like that. I say I'm very blessed because I had that, and I just shut the door on it and I got to work. I got help immediately, and I just have been on that path ever since.
Wow. That's pretty impactful. Pretty powerful. I mean, I got chills while you were telling that story. I'm really excited to read and hear that in our book.
Got a few more edits to make, but yeah, it's
Yeah, but like that is gonna help so many people just relate, right? And whether it's alcohol or food or working out or work or whatever it is that we feel so like that's consuming us, that compulsion that you were kind of speaking of, it's that, whatever it is, it's so relatable because it's not the alcohol that's like the thing, right? That's just the mechanism
Mhm.
that is taking over and being utilized in way of consuming you in that compulsion, right?
Yeah.
So I just think that's so powerful because like as you're talking about it, I can like feel myself in the back of the cop car with you, right? Like as you're saying it, as you were talking about it and having that,
Yeah.
like I can just feel that. Wow.
And, I will admit that it was not the first time that I had ever drove drunk. And to be honest with you, I have at times where I can't even recall or remember because I was so blacked out. And that night I wasn't. And I can remember things that I can remember it. And I can remember sitting in the back of the car. And I wasn't just sitting there having that aha moment in silence. I was screaming and I was yelling and I was acting like an absolute basket case, like almost to the like, of course they record it and my lawyer watched it and he was like, you were acting like the way you acted was like I had a lawyer that told it to me straight and I respected him for it because I did not want to be coddled because I knew I needed those consequences. I needed to go through the legal process and I needed to like I was the DA wanted to throw me in jail, even though that was my very first offense with the DWI. They wanted to put me in jail for 90 days. And as much as I didn't want to go, I was okay with it because I knew that I made a very selfish decision that could have harmed somebody else.
Yeah.
I could have had an accident and taken somebody's life. Like when I sat in the alcohol panel, they sent you to this panel where they have four different speakers on stage. And there was, I think, an officer, a person who lost a loved one to DWI, another person that took somebody's life from DWI, and another recovering alcoholic. Something to that nature. I can't remember all four of their stories, but the one I do remember is the woman who stood there and talked about the son she had lost to somebody who got behind the wheel.
Yeah.
And he blew the same BAC that I did, the drunk driver. And just that acknowledgement that I could have taken somebody's son that night or daughter or father who was on, somebody on their way home from work because I was selfish and just wanted to get home.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I wasn't thinking clearly, obviously. That I sat there in tears and I held that story on so tight because I realized that that could have been me and I never want to harm it. I'm the kind of person that sees a spider in my bathroom and I take it in a tissue and put it outside because I can't take its life. I
I
don't like spiders, but it's a life, so
I
you
am the
know.
opposite. I will stare at it and wait for somebody to kill it because I am weird. And
Yeah, and spiders creep me out and I won't have anything to do with them. But most of the, yeah, but it's like
but you're so funny because I can feel that about you. Like I can totally feel that you were like the most kindest, gentlest, like, let's just make this all like kumbaya moment, right? Like, I mean, you'll turn it on if you need to, right? Like,
like
but
that.
yeah, but you are like, you just like radiate some goodness. And so
Thank
it's just
you.
it's interesting because I can feel that about you. And that was what it took for you to notice that in you.
Yeah.
Right? Like it sounds like you didn't realize that you radiate this like goodness, beautiful spirit, like kind soul, right? But like it took you seeing that you could do something that is totally out of characteristic and who you want to be,
Yeah.
recognize that you're not that, right?
Yeah.
Like have a mirror like held up to you.
And it's interesting because, I hear that and I have heard that even when I was at my darkest moments,
Yeah.
actively drinking, people would tell me that back then too, that I had this, like I radiated like just fun and happy. And it's like when I finally came out of, and it said out loud that I was an alcoholic and I started my journey in sobriety. I can remember sitting having a conversation with one of the girls I was friends with and I worked with at the bar. And she was just like, I mean, I know you like to party, but do you really think that you're an alcoholic? And I started to tell her things that she didn't know. Like on Thursday nights, I'd get out of work and I would stop at the liquor store. I would order a pizza, stop at the liquor store next door, buy three gigantic bottles of wine, three or four, and I'd go home and at least polish one of them off, just sitting at home in my living room by myself watching Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
I would have a big glass, one of those big wine glasses, and that sucker wouldn't even be empty before I was pouring more in it. And I was like, and I don't do it because it tastes good.
Yeah.
I'm sitting alone by myself and I can't be alone. I can't because most of the time in those moments, I would be sitting there watching Grey's Anatomy, crying my eyes out. Sometimes I would cry hysterically, scream, yell, cry because now I'm in touch with the pain inside and
Yeah.
I would drink more to just not feel it.
Yeah. 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 That's
Because
it's
it's years of unrecognized and undealt with pain and trauma that I just kept suppressing deeper and deeper. And
yeah.
it was literally killing me slowly. And when I was telling her about that, she was like, I never realized it was that bad for you. And I think that what you're doing is good, you know?
Yeah. And it's so interesting because the people that I'm thinking of that I was sharing with you around like that are very high functioning, they are amazing human beings, like life of the party, beautiful, like gorgeous inside and out, right?
Absolutely. And the
And
thing is that alcoholics, drug addicts, we're not bad people.
no.
And I know like there's a lot of things like example drug addicts will do that are dishonest, so do alcoholics. But
Yeah.
guess what? We are all good-hearted people that are in pain.
Yeah.
And we were born with this disease that has completely taken over our lives
Mhm.
and have made things completely unmanageable and have changed us into somebody that we never wanted to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's finding that moment inside of you when you realize the goodness, and then that becomes the compulsion,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which, like, I'm too good for this.
Yeah.
Not
And
that
it's
I'm not good enough for anything else. It's I'm too good for this, right? Like,
right.
that's the piece. Yeah.
And my husband, and I can share this because he works in substance abuse because of his own personal journey with alcohol and substance abuse. And we were talking about it this morning, and because we talk about these things a lot, and he's just like, I didn't really have a trauma that resulted in my addiction. I literally, he could recall times when he was a kid where he'd watch specific movies and see specific things going on in those movies and be like, he was just drawn to it. It was something, and I can understand that because I can remember being 6 years old. And at night, when all of my siblings and I was number three of four kids, we'd go to bed and my parents would stay up, watch the news and the late night. And my father would my parents were not alcoholics, but my father would have like a scotch and water at the end of the night after us kids were in bed,
Mhm.
and he'd leave the glass on the kitchen table, and in the morning I'd get up and I would drink it, whatever was left in that glass, the melted down ice, there was still that scotch in there, and I drank it. And I was 6 years old, and I can remember, I don't remember liking the taste, and I can't tell you if this ever got me drunk, but I absolutely liked the way I felt. So there was like a one or two times I remember my parents would be downstairs in the family room with my siblings, we would watch TV. We had our Friday night programs, and I went upstairs and I found where they stashed the bottle because it was hidden in the back of a cabinet, but
Yeah.
it was low enough that I could find it. I
Yeah.
went searching for it. I went
Wild.
searching for a bottle of scotch at 6 years old, put
Wild.
put water and ice in a glass and put scotch in it, and I drank it.
It's
No
wild.
idea. I have no idea if I had if I acted weird after that. Obviously, my parents didn't have any idea that I did it. And I never talked about it until I got sober because I forgot about it. And I was like, that tells me that this was something that was in me from the day I was born. Like this
Yeah.
was something that was created inside me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would watch movies and TV shows where people would be like Sex in the City or,
Yeah.
Jersey Shore and be like, oh, yeah, I want that
Right.
life. And
Right. Let me party on the beach. Yeah.
yeah, that looks classy.
Yeah. Looks so romantic.
It
And
was
so,
not classy for me at all.
no, no,
I was not
it
classy.
was back of the cop car classy, right? Like,
It
yeah.
was belligerent. Like, somebody get this chick away from me and put her to bed. Like,
Man, what a journey, Lori. And like now you're just like there's a calmness and a peacefulness about you that like is just there, right? And that's that freedom from that compulsion. Like you know who you are, you know you're a good soul, and you just tap into that. So sort of gearing into now, so here we are now, you're helping women sort of find that within themselves, right? Not necessarily through addiction counseling or anything of that nature, but more in way of, hey, I've been through this and I found a way, I found a process to get me to the best version of me, and I want that for you too. And so,
yeah,
whether it's physical health or nutrition or mindset or opening a business, whatever it is that they're, looking at in the category of their life, like you're there to say, I got you. I'm going to walk through this with you and support you and guide you.
yes. So, I mean, because obviously alcoholism isn't that, I say, is just a symptom of everything else that was underlying.
Yes.
And like I said, there was trauma and there was a lot of fear and lack of confidence. I had no self-love, did not know my worth. I really felt helpless and hopeless.
Yeah.
And kind of like a waste of space on the earth for a very long time. And my behaviors in a lot of ways were searching for some kind of it was outside validation that I was seeking.
Yeah.
I was in a relationship for 8 years and I desperately needed him to love me. And I
Yeah.
didn't realize that until much later on after I've gone through this healing journey, like, oh my God, like that's why, like, I would change everything about me just to meet his need, just to satisfy him. And he never asked me to.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was not a bad man. He just, he had his own stuff.
Mhm.
And, we were very young, but, there was a couple times he broke up with me to go be with other women. And I would try to do whatever I could to make sure that he still saw me, that he still loved me. Like I had to have him love me like I needed air to breathe
Mm.
because I didn't love myself. I didn't have any self-worth. And if he could love me and if he could see my worth and value, then that meant I was valuable and worthy and I wasn't a waste of space on this earth.
Yeah.
And I had other addictions outside of alcoholism. I did find ways that I was addicted to work. I was addicted to food. I was addicted to, stress and anxiety. And there were a lot of things, shopping, you know,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
just anything I could to an addiction. Basically what addiction is it's that one thing that we do to give us a sense of fulfillment, to fill a void, or to basically mask what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
And when I finally got to a point where, okay, so I got sober, so now I replace my alcohol with sweets and greasy foods, and I go from 165 pounds to almost 300.
Mm.
So there's my weight loss wasn't just about losing weight for me. It was when I went through the journey of facing my trauma, going through EMDR and having the right therapy, when I finally let that go, when I finally worked on my, the trauma from family stuff and the divorce that my parents went through and everything, and, the boyfriend that, told me I was a piece of garbage when I was young, or, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Um, when I finally peeled back, I call it the layer effect, or like the layer effect, where you're constantly peeling back the layer. So every time I worked through something and healed from it, something else, like the layer pulled back and something else came up.
Mhm.
So I had to get to that root cause in effect. And so what I do as a coach is when somebody comes to me and they're full of fear and it's debilitating them from being able to have a fulfilling relationship, or something from their past has created this distrust in their partner who they have no reason not to trust them, but they can't, and
Mhm.
it's affecting their relationships, or it's affecting their ability, or they're overeating and they
Mhm.
want to lose weight, or they just have no manageability over stress. I have methods in place for overcoming fear, for building confidence, for moving through those tunnels that we stand in front of, like, I'm afraid to move through this
Yeah.
because I'm afraid on what's on the other side. And I help guide people through those women through those tunnels. And I have a method for that. You know, I like to create methods and I like to create, I have, 3 and 6 month programs, but each one of those is designed specifically to the woman who comes to meet the client and what their needs are, what their goals are. Do they want to lose weight?
Mhm.
Are they struggling with alcoholism?
Mhm.
Are they so built up with fear that they can't even leave their house?
Right. Right. Amazing. Amazing. Because you have gone through so many various things
Yeah.
that you have created, okay, I've done this, I got myself out, and then you've reflected, how did I do that? Right. There's a
Yeah.
really cool thing that when I'm in a situation, this is something that I've worked through that I've kind of brought up with other clients as well, is we will look at a challenge and say, how the hell am I going to do this? How the hell am I going to get myself through this? Whatever it is. It might be having kids, it might be getting married, it might be buying a house, or it might be, getting sober. It might be whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
And then it's okay. Then we get through it and then we look back and we're like, how the hell did I do that? Right? Like it's like on both ends, you're like, how am I going to do this? And then when you do it, you're like, how did I do that? And I realize I've asked myself that question in some regard so many times of how am I going to do this? How am I going to get through this? Oh my God, I can't do this. I can't do it. How am I going to do it? And then
Yeah.
you get to the other side and you're like, I did it, right? Even like my workout this morning,
Yeah.
right? Like halfway through, I look at my watch and I'm like, oh my God, we're only halfway through. And then we get to the end and then I'm like,
I've done that.
I did
Or
that.
it's like I feel like this has been it's like you put on a 30-minute workout on YouTube and you start doing it and you're like, "Oh my God, it's been 30 minutes, right?" And you look at the and you see it's only been 5. And
I
you're
know.
like, "Crap."
I know. I know. But
I
it's
can
like,
do this. And you get yourself to that and you're just like, "Wow, that wasn't so bad and I was able to do it." And then next time you show up that much stronger.
yes. Yeah, you're building that momentum. You're strengthening that muscle, right? It's that mental muscle. So it sounds like that's what you do. You're really helping people, women in particular,
Yeah.
move in that new neural pathway. You're helping
Mm,
create a new neural pathway in their brain, how
yes.
to do the thing that they're feeling stuck,
Yes.
which
And
is
a lot of it is encouraging them to do it in sustainable small shifts rather than going for the full gusto. Because have you ever set a goal for yourself? Like, let's say, a goal for yourself to lose weight or something. We'll use that as an example. And, you're like, I'm going to lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? And like, you just go in hard with it. And all of a sudden, you're burnt out by it by day 5. And you find yourself, you've deprived yourself of things you enjoy, like certain foods you enjoy. And, you go all in without any type of small shift. It's just you go full speed ahead.
yeah.
When you go full speed ahead at that fast rate, you crash and you burn.
Yep.
So my methods are to, in the way I like to do is guide you through small shifts. Like, okay, so you want to lose weight, fine. You drink. I mean, this is something I did. I used to live on diet soda, and I would have those big, massive 30-ounce mugs of diet soda. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to now cut out one of those and go to switch over to water.
Yeah.
And then eventually now I'm drinking nothing but water and I don't, I have no desire to drink soda. I still every once in a while will have one with my Friday night pizza.
Yeah.
But and I never deprived myself. So it's like if I wanted a brownie, I ate it. I just wasn't eating 2 or 3 brownies a day. It was more or less like, every once in a blue moon when I felt the need to have it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's small shift. Small
Yep.
shift. Yeah.
Small sustainable shift.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love this. This is such a good conversation, and I think it's going to help so many people. So Lori, how can people find you if they are looking for somebody to tap into in way of, hey, I've got this thing that's consuming me and it's keeping me stuck. I know Lori's a person that has been through this, and I want to just tap into her and
Sure.
work with her in some sort of capacity. Where can we find you?
Absolutely. Eventually, there will be a website. It's in process. But as of right now, I'm directing people to you find me on social media platforms. I am on Facebook under Lori A. Murphy, Empowerment Coach for Women. I'm on TikTok under Lori A. Murphy, Instagram, Lori Murphy Coaching. You can also email me at M as in Michael C empowerment at gmail.com. Facebook is my baby. That's the one I utilize the most. So you're definitely better at reaching me there or my email.
Perfect. And I'll put this all in the show notes, but I
Yes,
just like people like to hear it so they kind of get an idea. And then I'll put the links of how to connect with you also in the show notes so people can just
abs
click and find you.
yes.
And if y'all out there are following me, then you can just find her through me too. That's always an option.
Oh, yes. And I'll even provide you. So my I do it like I said, I have a podcast.
Yep.
It is on
I'll
you.
put the link into that too.
Yes, it's
Yep.
on YouTube, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Amazon Music. But I'll give you the YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe to our channels so you never miss episodes.
I know.
People, subscribing is important.
It is. It helps us reach more people and
Yes.
it really lets us know that you're following. And then, if you like certain ones, let us know, or if you like, you can actually like them on there too. And then we get feedback and then we know which ones people are liking more and we can do more of that type of content, which is cool.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. Well,
perfect.
thank you so much, Erin.
Yes. Lastly, one thing I always like to wrap with, if there's one little phrase or word or nugget that you want to leave with the world, what would that be today?
I have my favorite tagline that I use, especially at the end of my podcast episodes. It's let go of fear and let your spirit shine.
I love it. That's so you. So you. As the sun's coming in, beaming on
I
you.
know it's like you can barely see my face every time I turn around. It's like, okay, now I do have a nose. You just can't see it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Lori. You can hang on for a
Thank
second,
you.
but we'll end there, you guys. So be sure to go check out Lori on all platforms and follow both of us for our journey with Warrior Women, and you can get more of her too. So thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.